Welcome back, everyone. We are going to continue our narrated presentation for the week. We are going to start talking about practical prevention strategies. So think back to maybe a classroom that you were a student in, or a classroom that you had visited, or maybe even the classroom that you currently work in. Think about the overall feel of the classroom. Was it inviting? Did it have all of those environmental aspects that we just talked about? And most importantly, did it run efficiently? Did the classroom run smoothly? And if the answer is yes, it is probably because the teacher had employed several prevention strategies that helped children feel confident and competent in the environment. They knew the expectations. They knew what to expect from the adults in the environment. They knew their role in the classroom. That's what prevention strategies do. They help a classroom run efficiently and effectively. The first one that you see here under prevention is establish clear and consistent limits. Limits are statements of what behavior is appropriate. They ensure that children know what is exactly expected. Limits should be clearly stated and related to the safety and the protection of self, others, and the environment. The younger the child, the simpler the limit. Limits should be consistently enforced and within a child's ability to understand. So there on the slide you could see two examples. Inside we walk, and chairs are for sitting. They tell exactly what a child should be doing, not what a child should not be doing. So it doesn't say stop running or don't stand in the chair. They are straightforward expectations and explanations of limits. For example, you can see there again under straightforward explanations, the sound stays low. It does so it doesn't get in people's eyes. And we sit on chairs, not stand. If you stand on the chair, you could fall. If children know the reasons for limits, they are more likely to comply. Teaching children the why behind a limit helps them to internalize the rules of society. So limits must be positively stated. This can be tricky for some of us. So just remember that the more positive you are, the more likely you are to have the desirable outcome. Limits should be what children do, not what you don't want them to do. Positive statements help reinforce the appropriate behaviors and provide positive models of communication for children to emulate, and also decrease the likelihood for children to respond with defensiveness. So here are some examples. It's time to put the toys away, rather than don't leave the toys out. And turn the pages gently, rather than don't be rough with the book. When we use those statements that start with don't, children tend to not hear the don't. They hear leave the toys out or be rough with the pages. So make sure that when you're stating limits that you're using positive words that children can really connect to. This one is probably the most important prevention strategy that you can use that really helps children feel a part of the environment. It helps them feel accepted and cared about. And this is focus on the behavior rather than the child. Messages that start with you always or you never can be damaging to a child's self-concept and may be perceived by a child as attacking and critical. They tend to produce feelings of guilt and shame and can ultimately result in lowering a child's self-esteem. When caregivers and teachers focus on the behavior rather than the child's character, they preserve a child's integrity and other positive guidance for learning. So here's the example. When you grab the marker, it makes Shayna sad, rather than, you should be so ashamed of taking Shanna's marker. So one is stating what the child did. You grabbed the marker, it made Shayna sad. And the other puts the blame on the child. So one is about the behavior and one is about the child. So if you can always remember, the child is not the behavior, then you will master this strategy. And again, it's probably one of the most important. All right. So the first strategy on this slide is state what is expected rather than pose a question. If you pose a question, you imply there's a choice. So if something really isn't a choice, don't make it a question. Only provide a choice if it's appropriate. And if you're using offering choices, which is the next prevention strategy on the slide, as a strategy, then you need to make sure that both choices offered are appropriate and favorable. So you wouldn't say, you can either get in line and go outside, or you can lose your outdoor time. You choose. Instead, you should say, you can stand at the back of the line and make sure the door closes, or you can stand in the middle of the line next to your friend. Where are you going to stand? Choices should be positive and empowering. Now, if you give a choice, also be sure to give a child enough wait time to make their decision. The final strategy on this slide is about giving children a heads up when there's going to be a change in the schedule or in the activity or routine. If you try to rush a child out of an activity without giving a warning about a change, it may be disruptive and children will certainly respond accordingly. So these are some examples. In 5 minutes, it will be Austin's turn on the computer. Instead of, it's Austin's turn now, you need to leave the computer. Just give children a heads up. That will decrease the undesirable behavior of a child throwing a fit. If they know what's coming, they have more time to respond. All right. So, reinforce appropriate behavior with both words and gestures. When children are doing well, it's really important that we acknowledge them through words and gestures. Positive reinforcement helps children build confidence and encourages them to repeat desired behaviors. It's important for adults to focus on the specific behavior rather than the child, just like the other prevention strategy that we just talked about. So, here's an example. It was really kind of you to share the bike with Thomas rather than, what a good boy. This lets the child know what the appropriate behavior was that you are commenting on. And then, you look so proud of your painting rather than, I am so proud of you. When you say things like, I am so proud of you, you take that appropriate behavior away from the child and you actually make it about yourself. So remember, as best you can to always make those appropriate behaviors about the appropriate behavior and not about how you feel about it. When you clean up the room so well, it makes it easier to find things later rather than, you're my best helper. Sometimes when we use that type of praise, you are my best helper, the appropriate behavior then becomes about the praise and not actually about the behavior. So always be cautious of how you use praise. Praise is great. Kids want to be praised. They want to hear those kind words about themselves, but just be cautious of how you use it, that you're not turning kids into praise seekers, that you're actually helping them develop that intrinsic feeling of accomplishing something. Okay, moving along. So more prevention strategies. Ignoring minor incidents. As teachers, we need to really work on developing a tolerance to some of the more harmless behaviors. Sometimes for some of us it's noise or a messy desk or attention-seeking behaviors like tapping a pencil or constantly saying your name out loud when it's not necessarily appropriate but not bothering anybody. As long as children are still being productive and are not bothering anybody else but you, it's okay to let it go. Keep on moving. It can be hard for us. It can be hard for me, I know. But when you start ignoring those minor behaviors, they will go away. Okay, and then encourage children to use you as a resource when they need help. Children need to know that you are a resource. They should be comfortable coming to you when they have a problem. They need to know that you are there to protect and guide them, and children will learn that the teacher is willing to listen and to respond in a fair and supportive manner. So there's an example. If you don't know what to do, you can ask me to help you, rather than, it's hard for you, here, let me do that. And then the last two here under prevention are scan and proximity. So scanning the room helps teachers observe children and their activities, and it also helps you know when to use proximity. So proximity is when you stay close when a child is having a tough time, or maybe when a younger child is learning to play in social interactions. It's just the use of you being close or near a child that might need some extra help. Okay, so these are our prevention strategies. We're going to pause here, and when we come back, I'm going to introduce some intervention strategies. I am sure that these strategies are very familiar to some of you, and maybe to some these might be fairly new. And also know that sometimes prevention strategies and intervention strategies overlap or look very similar. The way that we use prevention strategies may be also how we extend intervention strategies. So you'll see that when we come back. All right, take a pause, go get something to drink, get some popcorn, and when you come back, stay tuned for intervention.